Manchester by the Sea is directed by Kenneth Lonergan and stars Casey Affleck as a man who must go home to settle the affairs of his brother after his brother dies and he must take care of his nephew. You would think that would be the central tragedy of the film, but it's not. It's a little different as the film jumps back and forth from the past to the present in revealing what this man has gone through throughout his life and what's brought him to this point. Now, the film is rather tragic in many ways. It's not even those tragedies that we learn about through the film, but there's other ones with many depressed characters, such as we learn about his brother's wife is also an alcoholic, and it almost, I would say, lays it on just a little too thick, and showing the hardship, but not too much, technically speaking, as there is a certain amount of comedy involved in the film, which I didn't think all worked. There's some hits and misses there, to be sure, though some of it did. It goes back and forth, and that is for sure. The focus, though, really is on the emotional quality. That is where the power of the film is found, particularly in Casey Affleck's performance, which is pretty amazing. It's very, very solemn performance, quiet and brooding, but you see how this man has become this way when we suddenly develop the past. And this isn't actually a story about him really changing much in the present story, as it's kind of an interesting take on someone who's suffered tragedy, and it kind of shows that there's some things you don't quite get over. And now it's not all quite that depressing, as there is some warmth there in the relationship with the nephew, but it's never a simplistic thing. And there's a lot of interesting moments to be found throughout the film, particularly when, just some, very human things like not being able to find where your car is. And again, not all these side stories are all that fascinating. Seeing the nephew trying to get laid, 2 separate times, it wasn't the most compelling part of the story, but a lot of it really does work fairly well. It's a film, I think the performances stand out more than the film does overall. Some of Lonergan's choice is a little questionable, right? In the camera angles in some scenes, it's kind of some strange choices there, particularly in Michelle Williams, who plays Casey Affleck's former wife scene, like her big money scene. Well performed, but when we're seeing her, the angles are all these odd, disjointed ones that really take away a little bit from the scene, oddly enough. And also, Lonergan uses a lot of classical music, which I don't have a problem with in and in itself, but he kind of overdoes it to emphasize the drama of certain scenes to a way that he didn't really need to in a lot of cases. But nevertheless, this is a good film, strong acting, moving for the most part, not perfect, but I'd say it's quite good. I'd give it 4.5 reels. Fences is directed by Denzel Washington, and it's an adaptation of a play about this man, this former Negro League player who's trying to live through life now as a garbage man with his family, and we see him interact with his wife and his 2 sons and the various people around the neighborhood, including his mentally challenged brother. This film is one of those play adaptations where you can tell it was adapted from a play. It stays very focused in terms of its setting, and it doesn't quite, go burst through that confines, like say something like Amadeus does, where you'd never guess that it was adapted from a play unless you already knew it. This film, you probably think that. But the thing is, though, Fences is a very good play, to be sure. It has the emotions right part. There's something interesting, though, in the dialogue. The dialogue has a certain style to, represent the people and the setting. And I will say it was almost too thick in the opening scene where we see Denzel Washington and the other actors, they just keep talking. And, that's part of his character of Troy, who's constantly telling these slightly big tales about himself and about other people. But that scene, they were combing too hard, here's the dialogue. Well, thankfully, though, there's this quiet moment right after one of the lines, and then you're like, okay, they're settling down, and the film becomes much more natural from then on, and actually the dialogue is very memorable. It really gives life to these characters, and you really get to know them in a rather special way. The film, though, is mostly focused upon the lead character, Troy, who is not a great man, and that's slowly revealed throughout the film, and he is brilliantly played by Denzel Washington, which actually would probably be my favorite performance of his, because he doesn't doesn't try to, color coat him or, candy coat him in any way. He shows him for who he is, like what's good about him and what's bad about him, what's really bad about him. And, it's a theatrical performance for a reason, because the character, he's telling these larger tales, and Washington gives that the life it should. There's more to it than that in his performances. The quiet moments, he really gives some nuance and life to, and you really understand this person. Viola Davis's performance I was a little more mixed on, because in the first half of the film, when her character's less important to the plot, so to speak, she didn't really add much. She just kind of looked over there, sad a little bit. You didn't really understand who she is until she has her big breakdowns, which is kind of Viola Davis' wheelhouse, and she delivers these well, to be sure. And all the supporting cast is very good. Stephen Henderson, and I don't remember his name, he played Bubba in Forrest Gump, is very good as the mentally challenged brother, a role that could easily be way overplayed. And, the film never reaches these greater heights of truly amazing adaptation of a play. It does achieve, realizing the power of the play in an effective way, and it delivers an effective film. That's why I'd give the film 4 reels. Okay, now La La Land, a musical about 2 lovers and dreamers and all the rest in Los Angeles, and focused upon Emma Stone as an aspiring actress and Ryan Gosling as an aspiring jazz pianist, and we follow them through their romance and trying to achieve their dreams in one way or another. Now, I gotta admit, this film is just a delight from beginning to end in just about every way. The music is all splendid. It's so much fun. It's just every musical sequence they never overstay their welcome. They just have so much energy. They're bursting at the seams, and then just the visuals that go along with them are just stunning at times, and they kind of play around with the idea of working within the context of the film industry, and it has so much to be enjoyed there. The story is simple, but in a good way. We get these characters, we understand them, we get invested in them, and we invest in them getting together with one another in really just an easy, fun way. It has some nice crackling dialogue. It's really got a nice spark of a good old-fashioned romantic comedy in a way. In terms of being an old-fashioned musical, I didn't feel it was. See, I'm not a huge fan of those old musicals like Singing Rain and stuff. One of the reasons being whenever it's not the songs, they often can be excessively corny, or they don't really sustain themselves beyond the songs, or, and the other thing, are way too long for the story. They contain La La Land sustains itself perfectly. It just goes along at this great pace. Someone said there's a lull in the middle. I didn't feel any lull. I had such a good time spending with these characters, and it actually builds in a way that suddenly you kind of find you're invested in them more than you even thought you might have been through a couple of sequences. Emma Stone has this great scene where she delivers the song Audition, and it's just a stunning scene, to be sure, and you really get invested in this relationship even more than you expect to, I feel, because by the ending, which is just an amazing ending in every way, from the music, the acting, the dancing, the visuals, of course, everything comes together to, just a truly remarkable ending that it makes this film one of the best films of the year, without a doubt, and one of my all-time favorite musicals, I'd say, although I'll admit that's not saying too much, because I'm just not a huge fan of musicals in general, but this musical is amazing. That's why I'd easily give the film 5 reels. Silence, directed by Martin Scorsese, tells the story of Jesuit missionaries attempting to restart Christianity in Japan after their former mentor has apparently fallen and renounced the faith. This film is a very special film. That's all I can say. It might just be a masterpiece, to be honest. It's got this epic scope and feeling and just the visuals, yet there's so much intimacy in regards to the story, in regards to how you feel about faith. Like, what does it mean to actually be faithful, to actually believe? And it's such a remarkable film. And like so many of Scorsese's films, he doesn't tell you how to feel. He lets you bring yourself to the film as well. Like in The Wolf of Wall Street, he didn't go, oh, look at how bad these are. You can say, look how bad those people were. He let you say that. He never had to tell you they were bad. He just showed you what they did. This is very much in the same vein, where it shows you this journey. We follow the lead character played by Andrew Garfield on, and we go, okay, what would we do in that situation? Would we believe in that situation? What would you think in this situation? And, Scorsese developed such an emotional story without trying to force the emotion at any point. He lets it just surface in such an eloquent, beautiful way. This journey is really an incredible one to behold. I've personally found that there wasn't even the idea of the long running time. I was so gripped by every second of it, which Scorsese peppers in with so many memorable scenes involving great horrors, involving the persecutions of Christians in Japan, which get very extreme in terms of the torture and the violence involved. It doesn't hesitate. Yet there is such beauty. It also shows within, like what do people get out of the Christianity in Japan, and what's this one man's story relate to all of that. And the acting here is incredible from Andrew Garfield. He gives such a harrowing performance of this man being pushed through so much, and every Japanese actor is also so on point, revealing so well. Even if they're technically what you assume is the villain in a normal film like this, you actually do see their perspective for the most part, and it's actually very interesting. It doesn't go, oh, these guys are the bad guys, clearly, even though they're clearly doing horrible acts. They let the characters speak for themselves, and again, you can say they're bad guys, or you could not. He leaves it up to you, which makes the film so special. Now, the film leads to a point that really takes a daring step. And if you were like me and you're as captivated by the film as I was, I found that step to be absolutely profound and wonderful. I do wonder, how anyone might react to this film. I imagine there's going to be some contrasting views, because you do need to become invested in this very particular way with it, which I did, and I actually felt that this ended up being the most emotional film I've seen all year, and also the best. That's why I would easily give the film 5 reels.